What's up, YouTube? Murphy Firearms Training here. I have got a Uberti 1849. Case has taken a little beating over the years, but this is a Uberti 1849. I'll go ahead and open this up and let you see. It is in 31 caliber. It is a neat little gun. The guy who had it before me was shooting buckshot out of it. Double-aught buck, because double-aught buck is 33 caliber. And the way these guns work is you always want to shoot something that is slightly over caliber. So like your 44 caliber pistol should shoot a 45 caliber ball, and I'll show you why in a second. But this gun came with a powder flask. It came with some caps. It came with a nipple wrench. It came with a mold, which I actually have in my shop with my bullet molding stuff. So it came with a bullet mold, and it molds a ball and a conical bullet. Okay, and I'll show you those in a second. And it's a neat little gun. If I put it next to my hand, you'll see it's small. It's very small. It's 31 caliber. It's not your standard firearm. You put it at half cock. You can rotate your cylinder. You don't want to dry fire these because it'll dent your nipples, and I'll show you that. If you look at your nipple here, it'll mushroom that over if you dry fire this thing, and then yeah, you'll have some bad results after that. But anyway, it's a neat little gun. Comes apart by taking out your barrel wedge here. It's a neat little gun, and if you do a little looking on these, it's actually called a Wells Fargo pistol. And it is called that because this was really the first concealed carry pistol that was ever used. And so this was something someone would stick in their belt and cover up. They didn't want you to know that they were armed. So a lot of your stagecoach drivers would carry one or two of these tucked in their belt. And then the guy to their right, who rode quote-unquote shotgun, would have a coach gun. So anyway, cool little flask came with it, and yeah, it's a cool little gun. And so being a 31 caliber, you're going to shoot somewhere between 15 and 30 grains of powder. My load is 20 or 25 that I shoot in this. It's not a lot of recoil, not a lot of penetration, but back then it didn't take much because they didn't have a whole lot of medical science going on. So it's a neat little gun, and it came with everything, like I said, including a ball mold. It came with some buckshot that I have used. It's actually quite old if you look at it. I mean, it's kind of almost degraded. It's kind of rough buckshot. So I don't know how old this is, but today's buckshot is much smoother. Today's buckshot is much smoother than this. But back to loading this thing and why you want a projectile that's slightly larger. So the way this works, I'm going to point the gun right at you, and you can see it's been well cared for, and I oil it pretty heavily every time I use it. And so before I use this gun, I'm actually going to take it apart, wipe it off real good. I'm going to swab each bore. I'm going to swab the barrel, get all the excess oil out of it. And I'm actually going to take it out to my shop while I've got it taken apart, and I'll blow compressed air through each nipple and then wipe each cylinder again. And I do that because I oil this thing pretty heavily, because I don't shoot it very often, and I don't want it to rust. And so I make sure that it's oiled heavily and that there's no way this thing can rust. So the way you load this guy, right, is you put it on half cock so the cylinder will spin freely, and you're going to come into this recess right here, and you're going to pour your powder. Now, I use a felt wad, and so I'll put a felt wad, and then you'll put your bullet. And I'll show you, if I put this bullet up here, it should sit up there, and it should not fall in. It should be a tight fit. And we will rotate it under here, and then you pull this little lever, and you have this plunger. Okay, you see this plunger action, and I'm not actually going to plunge that in there. I'll go to the next cylinder over. And when this is all lined up, you see that compresses your ball on top of your powder charge. Now, the reason you want this tight, the reason if this is 31 caliber, you do not want to use a 31 caliber ball, is because if that ball falls in there loosely, It's not a good tight fit. When this thing goes off, this gap between the cylinder and the barrel can allow some sparks, some flame, and you don't want anything getting past that bullet to that powder charge because it could set off the charge next to it. So that needs to be a really tight fit. Okay, needs to be a really tight fit. And what will happen, because this is soft, is this will shave off any excess lead when you cram it into the cylinder, right? So our plunger here will shave off any excess. The other thing you do before you shoot, and I use Crisco, people use boar butter, but I always put a dab of Crisco over each hole. And a lot of people think that that is to prevent what's called a chain fire, where one chamber sets off another. That is actually to soften the black powder fouling in the barrel between shots. That's what that really is for. It's not to prevent a chain fire. So the other thing is, you always cap every cylinder. Don't cap one cylinder. So anyway, and I'll show you the percussion caps. I'm not going to put one on it because I'm not at the range. I'm at the house. Make sure and be careful opening these, because you get to yanking on the cap, but you see there's your little percussion caps there. And they just fit right over each nipple. And you basically load all 5. It is a 5-shot, so you'll load all 5 chambers. Then you'll cap all 5 nipples, and then you'll start shooting. Okay? So this buckshot came with it, and I realized I don't shoot it in it anymore. That's actually from my shotgun reloading bench. Here's the mold, and for muzzle loaders you really need, and I'll show you, it's got a round ball and a conical. And it's pretty cool, except that this mold gets really hot really quick because it's solid brass. So you have to have a good set of gloves, and even then you can only mold so much. But what I use instead, I mold my own bullets. And let me get some out here so you can find a conical. Here we go. So this is the conical bullet here. That's the conical bullet. And then this is the round ball. And you'll see the slight sprue hole. If I can find it there on the round ball, you'll see the sprue hole here. Kind of pokes out just a little bit. And you'll load that usually down, sometimes up. But you'll load it down or up so that it's not to one side. But there's your conical. And there's your... And these are soft lead. I mean, if you take a pocket knife to them, they'll actually deform from a pocket knife. And I'll show you with the pistol. I'll put it on half cock again. Okay, and you can see it's completely unloaded. But if I come over here on the loading side and I put that ball there, okay, it doesn't just fall in. It's a good snug fit. And I would turn it right with this, what we call sprue up. Okay, turn it that way, and then we rotate it under here and ram it down. Okay, so that's how we do that. But anyway, yeah, so the reason I started molding these using the mold that came with the gun is because the buckshot that came with the gun is, number one, it's very rough, and I just don't, but it's also, buckshot is not pure lead. It tends to have some hardeners in it, so it's hardened, and it's really hard on that cylinder trying to shave that lead off, so these load much easier. Just in general, better at the range. And then the other thing I have here is these, here's the package, but it's these little felt wads, and I put that between the powder and the bullet. And the reason I put that between the powder and the bullet, you don't have to, a lot of folks don't. I like it because if I'm out shooting in the middle of the summer and I use boar butter or Crisco to help soften my fouling, and I cover up my 5 holes on my cylinder, and it's really, really hot. Sometimes, especially if you've been shooting and now the gun's hot too, that stuff will kind of leach downward. And this keeps that from getting into your powder. This little felt wad helps with that. So anyway, so I like using those. I have found them to be very helpful. They've prevented any issues I've had. So, but I kind of wanted to show you this guy because I thought he was cool. I bought this off a gun broker several years ago. I was actually looking for, I wanted a Navy revolver or something similar, you know, more of like a Civil War type revolver. And I came across this guy in the case with the powder flask. with the bullet mold, with the nipple wrench, you know, with the lead balls, which I later just took to the side. And I'm actually going to put all my molded bullets in here. And I take this whole case with me to the range. It's a lot of fun. And the fun part is this nipple, or this spout. That's the word I'm looking for. The spout that's on this flask actually has a 15 grain spout. And so if you put your finger over this and you turn it and you shake it, okay, there'll be powder in here now. And I'll show you that. So you'll see there's actually powder. So there's the powder. If I open it back up, the powder falls out. But that is 15 grains of powder. And so typically for black powder firearms, you tend to fire between half and 1 times the caliber in pistols. Okay? So for a 30 caliber pistol, 15 to 30 grains. And so if you want to use a 15 grain charge, and a 15 grain charge in this, it kicks like a 22. I mean, it's almost no kick. I shoot a 25 grain charge, and it's you know you're shooting something, but still not a lot of recoil, and still room to ram the bullet down and all that. But it's just kind of cool if you know, and if you don't know that, you can measure it with a powder measure. But cool little flask that came with it. It did not come with powder. I put powder in it. I do shoot 3F black powder, and I only use actual black powder in this gun. So anyway, hope that answers some questions and shows off kind of a cool little piece of history. But this is a Wells Fargo pistol. It's a Uberti 1849 is the actual gun, but the nickname is a Wells Fargo pistol. It's the original concealed carry handgun. And like I said, and I don't have huge hands, and if I put that in my hand, I mean, you can see it's a very small, I can just barely get my pinky on there. Very small little gun, and but it has a great trigger pull. It shoots well. It is fun to shoot, and it is a cap and ball revolver. It does get all the concepts across, you know. But it is the original concealed carry pistol, and so it's kind of neat that I'm into concealed carry and defensive shooting, and I kind of own a replica of a little piece of history. So anyway, if you have questions, leave them in the comments. It's a fun little gun. I'll get it to the range this summer and shoot it. Look forward to do a shooting video of this. We'll shoot the round ball and the conicals and, you know, see where we hit. So, but if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Appreciate your support. Like and subscribe.